Hey, it's Robot Theory Girl 5 here, and here's my recommendations for Devilman. Devilman Crybaby is the latest installment of the Devilman franchise that was created by Go Nagai in the 1970s, and was highly influential and helped popularize many story concepts that we see in modern manga and anime. The story is about Akira Fuda, a sweet, sensitive young man, and his friend Ryo Asuka fighting demons, specifically by Akira becoming a demon himself and retaining his human conscience, to fight other demons who are killing and possessing other humans in a hyper-violent, sexual, and gory world. Honestly, I feel like Crybaby is very functional in getting the gist of Devilman down, and for people who are just getting into the Devilman franchise, it has some strong moments in presentation of the gore and violence, but it also does a decent job modernizing the Devilman world, as this Devilman takes place in the 2010s instead of the 1970s. The hip-hop elements remind me a lot of Samurai Champloo, which is always a really good thing. And the animation itself is really interesting and fluid to look at. It's no Mob Psycho 100, but it's pretty good and amazingly expressive. Sadly, story-wise and character-wise, I think this is where the show starts to fall apart, because I feel like if you're more familiar with the concepts in the Devilman franchise, the story is very bare bones for Devilman, and so is most of the characterization, especially for Ryo Asuka. But it does have some good moments here and there. Now again, before you watch this, know that Devilman Crybaby is extremely gory, violent, and sexual. And that if that stuff makes you uncomfortable or puts you in a bad place, skip it. This incarnation of Devilman is not worth you risking your mental health. Personally, the over-the-top violence and sex stuff wouldn't bother me as much if it didn't feel like they banked more on the shock value of those things rather than going into the nuances of the characters and character motivations and complexities of Akira, Ryo, and the other Devilman legacy characters like Celine and Kame, and the themes that have evolved over Devilman's long history. In a more meta sense, I feel like this makes Crybaby just good instead of great, because Devilman Crybaby has to stand out against everything that's come out after the original Devilman and has cribbed elements or story beats that were popularized from the original source material, all while having deeper character writing and themes that stick more with the audience. Again, these story beats that happen in Devilman just aren't new anymore, so they don't hold the same weight without the well-written complex characters that we've come to know in Devilman that make them feel new and engaging, to keep you coming back and thinking about, this anime in the same way you would for like Berserk or Evangelion, two anime and manga series that have cribbed from Devilman itself. Most of the shocking sex stuff and gore just feel really superfluous at times. Mild spoilers here. But when I got to the end of Crybaby and found out that we had already gotten to the end of Devilman, I started to think about how, wow, they showed this gratuitous sexual violence gore scene, but not stuff like Akira managing to talk Ryo down from shooting Mickey. I thought that would have been really interesting to see and show us their bond and how they've maintained their friendship despite Ryo being so wild, but it just cuts very crucial to establishing their bond, and Dino and Akira's relationship is really important to the story of Devilman. But no, that scene of Miko being held at gunpoint and having sex with some weird old man, then she kills him with her demon powers, was super necessary, even though we already knew that she was a demon. Plus, when Akira was fighting demons, with the exception of Celine and Kame and Jinmen, they didn't seem to have much personality, and the fights kind of felt a bit flat. It also sort of bums me out that we missed out on such great characterization, because this may be the only Devilman anime we get for a really long time. And it had the opportunity to delve deeper into the characters than any OVA has, because Devilman has only really had OVAs for the past couple of decades. Mostly because the subject material was so, iffy and gory for a TV station to take on that they didn't really do that. We've had movies here and there and OVAs here and there, but this was the first time we've had like a series to really dive into what Devilman was. And by virtue of being a season long, it could have really just looked into how these characters have evolved over time and just their really deep characterization, but it didn't do that. And I feel like that's just a really missed opportunity. And it's in my own personal philosophy that I believe that characterization is always going to stick out more than, shock value things like violence and sexual gore, because when I come back to things like Berserk, I don't go back to that because I like the violence of the situation, and I'm not saying it's bad to like the violence or the fighting. I'm just saying that there needs to be something behind it. because violence by itself just doesn't do it anymore. Like, you need to have more going on in order for it to be really, really good. Because when I go back to Berserk, it's not just for the sake of violence or seeing Guts fight, even though that is pretty cool and it is an interesting aspect of the anime. It's his characterization. It's the characterization and strong themes and story elements that I want to keep going back to. It's the fact that I want to see these characters succeed, and I think they're really complex and interesting, and that they're great to think about and analyze. And I feel like it's the same way for Devilman. I think it's, you know, the characters and the strong character dynamics that makes a story evergreen, rather than the presentation, the spectacle of it. And I feel like Devilman relies too much on the spectacle rather than the characters, and I feel like that's a really big failing, because the only thing that's really making Devilman Crybaby stand out is the animation, the music, and the hyper-violence and gore and sexual content. The thing is that hyper-violence, gore, and sexual content will always be upped in the later years. However, characters, those shits stay evergreen. I mean, Berserk was gory and hyper-violent and sexual when it first came out, but people still talk about it, not because of those hyper-violent, gory elements, though I know some people who do enjoy those elements, don't get me wrong, but because the characters are so well written and so well defined and strong, and that because that stuff isn't going to keep it special forever. I feel like pretty soon Devilman Crybaby is just going to be one of those things that, one of those animes that falls to the wayside instead of being as special as being as big as it could have been. That isn't to say that the anime is particularly bad. I'm just saying it's good when it could have been great. Anyway, that's Robot Theory Girl 5, and I'm logging out. See you next time.